Okay, good morning to everyone. Hare Krishna. Good afternoon, whatever it is.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Pranams.
Get started in
Hare Krishna
a couple of
Maharaj.
minutes.
Dandavad Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Maharaj's network seems to be fumbling up. Maharaj is off the platform.
Hare Krishna Rasai.
Hare Krishna. Another Pranams.
How are you doing?
Krishna's message is giving me safe. Your side.
Hope you're good.
By His grace, I'm doing well. Unfortunately, yesterday I couldn't join you.
Alright, all is well.
I traveled to.
Yeah. We're happy you're here today.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for welcoming back.
Okay.
Mm.
Alright.
Said, how can that be so? Okay, we need a kirtan. Who's the kirtanier here? Get started. Madhavan, you kirtan? Prince, who's a kirtan? Tell me.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I wasn't getting any response from the house.
Yes, our audios are muted. Just we don't want to cause any feedbacks.
Okay.
So maybe one or two people can just leave their audios on whilst we support you.
Okay, that's all right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama,
Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Rama Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Masunda Radha Jamasunda Jaya Radhe.
Jaya Raja, Jaya Kunda Raja, Jaya Raja.
Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Jaya Radhe.
Jaya Raja, Govinda Raja, Govinda Jaya Raja.
Sing more kirtan.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Kirtan is Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Goranga, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Goranga,
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare.
Hare Hare,
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Rama Hare,
Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Goranga.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Sing down to
Hare
this
Rama,
Bible. What am I
Rama
saying?
Rama,
All the
Hare.
devotees, chant the holy name and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Okay.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyabari Paschata Desa Karini Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Maha Namo Maha Vadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tushri Namo. That verse is by Rupa Swami, who's the author of the Upadeshamrita. Rupa Goswami is something really special. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadam. He's the one who knows the heart of Lord Chaitanya. He knows the mission. And he's our Acharya, Rasacharya, how to taste the nectar and how to give it. So we just finished 7 chapters of this little book. 7 out of 11. 2/3 of the way. And what's all the noise? Who's talking somewhere? These first 7 chapters are different aspects of sadhana, practice. So I want to just quickly review. See if anybody remembers, please try. Otherwise you can check back. But what is the first verse? What is it about? Who shall we start with?
Hare Krishna, the first verse of the book. Bhakti Vigam.
Yep.
Okay.
If you can just say in English if you don't remember the Sanskrit.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
All glories to your Lotus feet. Let me come in. It's the first essay, Bhako Vigam, Manasa Kroda Vigam. Jihua Vigam, Vidaropasta Vigam. Itam Vigam Yo, Visahita Diraha. Sarvam Apimam, Ritivim Sa Sisyat. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the edges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. Hare Krishna.
Okay, what's the very important word in that line? In that? I'll tell you. Tolerate.
Correlate.
It doesn't say a person who doesn't have these urges. Prabhupada said they will always be there. They always come, even in a dream or somehow or other. But the test is who can tolerate them, because that's the nature of the body. It's full of all these urges. But the sober person can tolerate it and not act on it and act according to Krishna's direction. And then you can preach all over the world. So learn to tolerate. Was that from memory or did you look it up? All right, a different devotee here, number 2. 6 things which are detrimental that can get in the way of our bhakti, our progress, our sadhana. Okay, I'm just going to call on the first one. I see Rasa Vilas, you like to talk.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, Haridas.
The verse 2 says, one devotional service can be spoiled by these 6 things. which is 1, eating more than necessary or accumulating more funds than required. 2, over endeavoring for mundane things. 3, taking, you can hear me?
Yes.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna is
Yeah, we
hearing.
can hear you. Continue.
3,
As the
talking
fourth-
about mundane subject matters. 4, fourth one, 23,
Practicing the scripture.
practicing the scriptures injunction just for the sake of practicing, but not for spiritual advancement. 5, association with worldly-minded persons. And then 6, someone should have the 6th one.
Being greedy for mundane.
Being greedy for mundane things. Yeah, being greedy for mundane things. Mara, this is the 2nd verse. I can remember. Hare Krishna.
But now, of course, they're all prominent, but Prajalpa may be the one that we fall victim to the most. Like, especially in Africa, everywhere I've been, the newspaper is so cluttered with politics. It's all Prajalpa. But, you know, the common people are so fascinated by that. Even you go to church, that's what they talk about. You know, talk about the politicians and they talk about who's doing this and that. So we have to be very careful. It's just gossip, you know. Gossip doesn't sound good, but talking about the world news, you know, what's in the world going on, what's this country doing, that country, what's the latest on the COVID. It's all, you don't want to die talking about that stuff, you know. That would be a real disaster.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah,
Here we hear people say everything is politics. So in Ghana, for instance, the pastors preach politics these days because they say even there's politics in everything, the Bible, religion, whatever. So what do you say about that? Because this is, you are making an example of
well, there's different
people.
ways of looking at it. Politics means, you know, I mean, we could look in the dictionary to see exactly what it says. But political views, beliefs, you know, those are always there. Struggle for power, manipulation, mechanizations, you know, many politics. But I'm just specifically like America, they went through that election. Even many devotees, senior, older devotees anyway, they were constantly talking against this candidate or that candidate, arguing with each other, you know, big arguments about which party is right and wrong, you know, that's just not our business. And making politics, manipulating, trying to get yourself into a better position, trying to put someone else down, that's all politics. And, you know, we tend to do that. It's part of life. And does that help?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you.
Activities associated with the governance of a country or a temple or movement. So that has to be there, you know. But then when this type of politics, just talking about the government, talking to take part in politics, like you all know your brother Baraha in Sierra Leone, when the coup was going on, he took sides and joined up with one of the rebel parties and thought he was going to become like the next president or prime minister or something. Ended up in jail, you know, because his party didn't win. That's not our business. We don't get caught up in this. We just preach. We have to hide out to preach. We can't preach for a little while, that's okay. But we don't want to make friends. We can have, greeting some politician. We want to be too tight with him because the next day he may be out of office and all his enemies are your enemies. Okay? So everyone has different beliefs, and even in our movement, it happens all the time. And it just stops us from any kind of spiritual advancement. To be too caught up in these things. So let's go ahead to what 6 things that help. Prasiddhiti. Who can say?
Being enthusiastic.
6 things that help us in spiritual life.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Being enthusiastic, being patient, endeavoring with confidence. I'm locked. Somebody can
Acting according to regulative principles.
correct.
Should I continue for you?
Yeah, you can continue.
You get them
Abandoning the
all?
association, abandon the association of non-devotees, and then following the footpath of the previous acharyas. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Did somebody say patience? I didn't hear them.
Tolerance.
Patience and tolerance are practically the same thing. In some languages, it is. In the English dictionary, it says the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Because sometimes we're very enthusiastic and then things don't go right, we get really upset. We don't get our results fast enough. Other people are not seem to be getting in our way. And that's a hindrance to spiritual progress. And it won't even help our material progress because you can't focus when you're angry. All right, next one is easy. Loving exchanges.
Bring it to charity.
Someone different? Rajeshwari?
Haribo, Maharaj, Dandavat,
Yeah, what are the 6 loving exchanges?
giving gift in charity, accepting charitable gifts, giving prasad and accepting prasadam, inquiring confidentially and revealing one's mind in confidence.
Right, talking about Krishna, talking about how wonderful Krishna is, how he's changed our life, asking people to tell you how you can make more advancement. That's what that deepest meaning of that is. It's not just saying, oh, I'm so bad and my mind is this and that. I'd like to kill this one. That's low-class way of revealing your mind. Very good. Okay, the next 2 are maybe a little more difficult to remember. But first one is about judging people. Judging devotees, especially. So before looking it up, somebody give a basic idea what it is all about. Okay, come on. Salika, Mr. Scholarly. We know you know the basic idea. That if you don't come up with something,
Please accept my Dandavat Agresha Prabhupada.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Maharaj. I have a little delay on the altar today, so I'm just listening. What was the question, Maharaj?
About the verse number 6, is it? Yeah. About judging devotees.
It says that one should mentally honor devotees, which has holy name. Offer obeisances to those who are initiated, and associate with those who are advanced devotees.
Okay. That's a start. So should we judge a devotee by his birth or his beauty or ugliness of his body?
Okay.
How do we know if a devotee is advanced?
By their engagement in devotional service, quality of their devotional service, not by their body or birth place.
I was saying it describes me. Born in a low family, okay, militia, meat eaters, beef eaters. When I was born, my parents weren't drunkards. They became drunkards, but they were definitely beef eaters, and they wanted their children to eat even more beef. Bad complexion, not very good. Deformed, not exactly, but not very good. Diseased and infirm, that's me. So they may seem prominent, but and others even more bad, but we don't judge them. We judge, you know, like Jayapataka Maharaj, he's in a wheelchair, his arm doesn't work, his face is paralyzed, you know, but everybody recognizes here's a great saintly person, right? Because he's always talking about Krishna, thinking about Krishna, trying to help others come to Krishna. That's what we're looking for. Some materialistic person, one demon, that so-called devotee that's against his kind, he said, look at him, you know, this is because he's this and that, you know. No, it's just Krishna's just using that to test us. Prabhupada came in a very old body, you know, to preach in America. And then he got very sick right away. And Prabhupada actually, just for inspiration, he said he never had one day of good health the whole time he was preaching. Not one day where he was actually healthy. But 99.9% of the days he acted, it seemed like he was the healthiest person in the world because he didn't pay attention to it. So these are things we learn. And Prabhupada, you know, a 70-year-old man, and Shaman Sundar Prabhu, who was a very good-looking young American boy, very handsome, and associating with, you know, similar type people. He was, in his book, he described it, so much drug taking. And he was having a hard time. He knew about Krishna consciousness. And he was wondering, can I really give this up, you know? And they were at the airport. And as soon as he saw Prabhupada walked out the door coming into the airport. And he said, as soon as he saw Prabhupada, he had never seen anybody so beautiful in his life. And he immediately gave up everything. Gave up all kind of intoxication, illicit anything and everything, and surrendered everything to Prabhupada just by seeing him. He'd already read the book a little bit, but that's how Prabhupada, you know, is a sincere person. He's the most beautiful person in the world, but most people would see an old man. Devotees saw the most beautiful person, saw the soul. So we have to think like that. We have to be careful. Okay. I'm just quickly reviewing because Dr. Churchamar said it's good to review.
ibu ihe mecha ka eweta ego nye. Eh?
Like, I don't know how it is for you people. I know myself. I was trained, by my mother in so many prejudices. Fat people, black people, this people, that poor people are bad, and I still have to deal with that in my, I look at someone and, oh, that person, this, that, they're this type of body. I have to keep correcting myself. Eventually, I'm getting better, I have to admit, by preaching a lot. The more I went out and preach and talk to people, the more I realized there's no way you can judge someone by their body. People that my prejudice would think would be the ideal candidate that would want the book would, spit in your face. Someone else who looks like the last person in the world that would be interested in the Vedas will come up and start talking to you about the Vedas, the Mahabharata. So in that way, Krishna teaches us, look for the soul, look for the right kind of consciousness in everybody. Don't look at the body. The body is just it's like clothes, and it's just your old clothes or your new clothes. Okay, so the one more about chanting. This one is really, really nice. Shat Krishna Nama Charitari Satapta Vidya Pito Patapta Prasanasya Vacho Chikanu Pavarada Nuditam Kalusai Vajusta Swadvi Kramad Bhavati Tad Gadamula Hantri. Somebody wanted to say something? So I heard a Madhavi voice. A lot of you are showing up late, try to be on time. I know sometimes it's just like yesterday for me. I started early, but the electricity went off 4 times. Internet went off 3 or 4. Well, the internet went off automatically when the electricity went off, but the internet went off on its own a few times also. So sometimes, you can't blame someone for being late. You have to find out what's behind it. All right. So what is this verse all about? Number 7.
Number 7 is about the essence of the holy name, or the sweetness of the holy name.
Yeah, and what's the example? What is
one afflicted with jaundice of avidya?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Those who lack taste for the holy, chanting the holy name. Yeah, those of us who don't really have taste for chanting the holy name, and how we can overcome such weaknesses and chant properly to relish the sweetness of.
And how can we cure that? How do we cure it?
Enthusiasm is required here, Maharaj.
What?
From the previous.
How can we cure this avidya so that we can relish the taste?
Cheto Dapanam Majanam, Baba Mahadavagni Nivapanam, Sreya Karava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyava, Vadu Jivanam. By chanting the holy name, constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, we get freed from the disease of avidya, and we relish the taste for serving, understanding, and serving the Lord.
Yeah, it can, Say like, my godbrother, my Bhakti Swami, he walked all the way out to Canada a couple of times, 6 or 7 times. It's really far, right? It's like 5,000 kilometers or something. So how do you get from one side of Canada to the other by walking? It's very simple, right? Somebody can please answer.
Hare Krishna, I couldn't hear you well.
How do you get, if you're walking from one side of Africa to the other, how do you get there? What do you have to do?
Take a flight.
Huh?
Hare Krishna,
You're
Maharaj.
going around, over downhill. What do you have to do?
Take flights. Okay, flights.
Keep walking. Come on, it's so simple. Devotees are always asking, what can I do? I don't have a taste for chanting. I don't feel like I'm making progress. The simple answer is keep chanting. Because of offenses, we're held back. Keep walking. People make a quota. They'll go so far every day. Eventually you'll get to the other end. Keep chanting every day, chanting. You're always making progress toward Krishna. So that's a very simple thing, and I don't know how you could not answer that. You keep walking. You don't sit down and think about it getting to the other side. You keep walking. You might only go 40 kilometers a day, but eventually enough days, 100 days, you go all the way. It's simple. Keep walking. How do you climb to the top of Tirupati? 9 kilometers up the mountain. Keep climbing and remembering that Krishna is on the top and he's going to give you a lot of mercy. I think there's a goal also. If we want to progress in spiritual life, we have to know what the goal is. We have to keep the Krishna in mind, the goal of why we're doing it. Like if you're running a race, at the goal line, there's an end. In football, there's a goal. You want to fall in the goal. That's whatever you're doing. If you're running backwards, sideways, giving it to someone else, the purpose is to get it in the goal. And your team, everybody has to be thinking of that all the time. You don't care that only I get it in the goal, as long as it gets. You want to help everybody also by helping others to get towards Krishna, and Krishna helps us. All right. That's enough of that. I'm tired. So verse 8, now this starts in different rasa, not sadhana. This is discussing the results of sadhana. An important point is that sadhana, chanting the holy name, getting up early, taking bath, that doesn't change, no matter how pure you become. The more pure devotee like Raghunath Das, their sadhana is more fixed up, more steady than anybody. But their internal, consciousness while they're chanting, while they're doing whatever they do, is much different. Because they're totally in the spiritual world. But that's what we have to think about these people and work towards it. Text number 8. I'll read the Sanskrit. Tanama rupa charitari sakirtananu smityo kamena rasana manasini oja tishtan braje tadanuragi jananugami kalam nayeda kilamit yupadesha. Somebody else want to chant the Sanskrit? Purifying.
Krishna. That's right. Tanama Rupa Charitari Suketananu. Smrityo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyoja. Tista Rajita Dhanragi Jana Nugami. Kalam Nayid Akila Miti Upadesha Sharam. Hare Krishna.
Pretty good. How come there's two Stephen Halo squares here? One has just got a big Superman yes, and the other one just big picture.
The camera is not so good, so I connect to the phone for the picture, the video. Yeah.
All right. Okay, one more. Chant the sloka.
I'm using.
One more. Chant the Sanskrit.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, please.
Who is that?
No, Haribo, try.
Hare Krishna.
Anantacharya.
Nama.
Okay.
Nama Rupa Charita Disuketanu. Smrito Kramena Rasana. Manasi Niyoja. Tistan Rajetat Anuragi Jana Nugami. Kalam Nayed Akilam Iti Upa Desha Sharam. Hare Krishna.
Very good. All right.
Hare Krishna.
Translate. The essence of all advice. That sounds pretty important, huh? Please take note of this. Put this on your altar. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braj and Golokadam and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. Kind of everything is there. Actually, all of these verses are like that. But that's it. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Right? Nityam bhagavata sevaya. Just we chanting and hearing these things over and over again. Utilize one's full time. Okay, let's start reading the purport. And someone else read.
Hare Krishna
Malika,
Maharaj.
take charge of calling on people to read.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I want to start.
Okay.
Text 8, purport. Since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only of this life, but also of many, many lives of the past. These impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produces contradictory pictures. In this way, the mind's function can become dangerous for a conditioned soul. Students or psychology are aware of the mind's various psychological changes. In Bhagavad Gita 8:6, it is said, Yam yam vapis maran bhavam, tia jati ante kale varam, tam tam eveiti konteya, sadatat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quit his body, that state he will attain without fail. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create a subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and taste only Krishna prasad. Srila Rupa Goswami further advises, Testan Vraje, one should live in Vrindavan or any part of Vrajabhumi. Vrajabhumi, or the land of Vrindavan, is supposed to be 84 crosas in area. 1 crochet equals 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. This is further elucidated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 294. Krishnam smaram janam chasya, prestam nija samihitam, tatat kata ratas chaso, kuruyat vasam raje sada. Translation: a devotee, Stephen, a devotee should a minute.
Hare Krishna. Do I continue with the translation? Hare Krishna.
Please continue. Someone is just beside making some calls. I think it's disturbing me. Please continue from Hare Krishna.
A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Raja and always engage in Krishna's Smaran, Janam Chashya Pristam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve. Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti 9.5, Siva Sadaka Rupena Sida Rupena Tatrahi Tad Bhava Lipshu Nakarya Raja Lokanu Sharatha. In the transcendental realm of Rajadam, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates and particular associate of Krishna, and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization. When one is in a siddha purusha, or spiritually perfect soul, when one is a siddha purusha, or spiritually perfect soul. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and his name, form, quality, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service.
Okay, stop there. There's a lot to go over. Thank you. There's a lot to go over there. One thing is, we're hearing is you should live in Vrindavan. It doesn't necessarily mean the physical area of the map, Vrindavan. It means to have the consciousness in Krishna. And we can go to Vrindavan, by bus. Usually now we go by car. We used to have to come to Vrindavan by horse cart or something from the Mathura train station. There weren't even taxis, but that doesn't mean you're in Vrindavan just because your body is there. We can be on the holy dham. To be in the holy dham is to be always thinking of Krishna. And then it doesn't matter where your body is in this material world. Prabhupada, many times he said, I am not in New York, I am in Vrindavan. I'm not in Los Angeles, I'm in Vrindavan. Because he was thinking of Vrindavan. But many of us, we've been in Vrindavan and we're thinking of, someplace else. For whatever reason. So we're not quite in Vrindavan, we're not absorbed. But if we can get absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's name, then like Advaita told our Chaitanya, wherever you are, that's Vrindavan. So, and Mayapur is not different than Vrindavan. So the mind is mentioned in the very beginning, and who knows the verse that it's mentioning. Actually, it's paraphrasing a Bhagavad Gita verse. And the mind can be what?
Bhagavad Gita 8,
Right?
Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, text
any-
5.
Now, how does it change from being your friend or your enemy? Movement is especially meant to train the mind to be thinking of Krishna's business. We have to train the mind just like you train it. Well, if you have a dog, if you have a child, if you have a horse, you have to teach it. If you're a teacher, you have to teach the children what to do and what not to do and when to do it and when not to do it. So according to Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, we have to teach our mind to remember Krishna. It's a summary of all rules and regulations. It's to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So we all have a wild, untrained mind. They're trained, but trained all wrong. Trained to be envious, trained to be angry, greedy, all the things we've been reading about we have to give up. Because our mind is trained in that way, we have to get it retrained. We have to clear it out and teach it all new lessons. To give up all the previous conditioning, become an open slate, and let Prabhupada and Krishna program us. We've been all programmed to be just brainless robots. This movement is meant to train the mind. The best way to control the mind, who knows what Prabhupada said?
Is by chanting. All right.
By what? Write this down.
It's by chanting and engage the mind all the time in the service of the Lord.
Yeah. He specifically said, thinking of how to spread the holy name. That is the ideal, best way to control the mind, to use it properly. Of course, any thinking of Krishna, any thinking of, even if you're just thinking how to wash the pots, how to praise another devotee, all these things, you have to be training the mind. But the goal is we want to teach more and more people to chant the holy name. We want to get it out there. You can do that anywhere. So this is important. I was trying to explain this to one new devotee in China the other day. Why we do something good, but we don't get a good reaction right away. Why someone does something really bad, but nothing happens to them. It makes people doubt the laws of karma. But there's so many factors. So the mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only from this life, but many, many lives in the past. And also we have karma, not only from this life, not only from our immediate previous life that directed us into where we are now, but from many lifetimes, many collections of good and bad activities. And then Krishna knows how to balance it all out. But Krishna is especially merciful. And if he sees the slightest spark of, wanting to do something for Krishna, he arranges everything for us. He's done. Devotees go everywhere. Devotees meet people. Devotees chant the holy name. Devotees give books. Devotees make temples so people can come. But we're dealing with many, many lifetimes. We have no idea. So sometimes they produce contradictory pictures. So the mind's function can become dangerous. So Krishna is a very important verse, 8:6. Everybody probably knows by heart. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavan tajat yanti kalevaram tam tam ni eveti konteya sadatat bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. But what depends, how anybody raise your hand, what will determine what we remember at the time of death?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Okay, who is that? Madhavan. Okay.
Well, that would be the average of the activities one performs during lifetime. That would determine the state of mind when he dies. And also depends on the person's attachment, things that they are so much attached to. So that will also influence whatever to remember.
Yeah. But basically, what you said first, I think. Whatever we're doing in this life, that's what we're going to remember at the end of life. So that's why, it's advised to chant a regular number of rounds every day and have a regular life of hearing and chanting, serving Krishna. So at the time of death, even if you're in a coma, incapacitated, Krishna in the heart will make sure you remember him because you've been trying to remember